Hello, and welcome to our keto webinar. I'm super excited to talk to you guys today about this, and I'm so excited technology worked. I'm going to cover lots of really cool stuff about keto and about living low carb and about how to lose weight, how it works. And at the end, I'm going to open it up for questions, and you can chat your questions. I have so much great information to share with you guys. And so what we're going to cover, I'm just going to go through the outline. We're going to cover what is ketosis, how do you get into ketosis, what do you eat to get into ketosis, and we're going to cover the biggest protein myths, what are some of the myths around ketosis. We're going to cover what low-carb foods can take you out of ketosis. We're going to cover how being deficient in certain nutrients can actually contribute to weight gain. We're going to cover bulletproof coffee drinks and other, high-fat drinks. We're going to cover sleep and how that relates to your weight. We're going to cover whether calories matter. And then I have a bonus section on intermittent fasting because I noticed you guys have lots of questions on intermittent fasting. So we've got tons and tons of really great information. Can you guys all see the screen okay? Is everybody, I'm just making sure we don't have more technological challenges. Awesome. All right. Let's get started. We're going to start with some boring stuff. None of the advice contained in the webinar is considered medical advice. Don't make any changes to your lifestyle without discussing it to your healthcare practitioner or provider. I'm not giving any medical refresh. Oh, somebody's saying the chat is private, but no, it's public. It should be working for you. So if you don't see it, just hit refresh and you should see it again. But I'm still a little nervous that we're going to be technologically challenged. So do message me too if you're having any troubles. So my theory is if you keep good food in your kitchen, you will eat good food. If you keep crap in your kitchen, you will eat crap. And maybe you have way more willpower than I have, but I know if there's chips in the house, if there's candy bars, if there's cookies, if there's, those sorts of processed foods, I will eat them. So the way that I don't eat them is I don't have them in my kitchen and I don't have them at work during my day. So if you keep good food in your kitchen, you will eat good. That's my superpower, superhero tip. So what is ketosis? Well, ketosis is a natural state for the body. A lot of people think that it's some sort of weird thing that happens or you're starving yourself, or maybe it's related to ketoacidosis with diabetics, with type 1 diabetics. Absolutely not. Ketosis is a natural, normal function of the body, and it's what happens when you're in a state of fasting or a very strict low carbohydrate diet. And all it means, the word ketosis or keto comes from the word ketones, which is the name of the fuel molecules in your body. So if you think glucose is sugar, ketones is the fat that your body burns for fuel. And I don't know if you guys are like me, but if you have 1 or 2 extra pounds that you want to get rid of, or maybe a few more, then you want your body to burn that fat. And that's what ketones ultimately are, is that fat getting burned. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's okay. We're going to dig in. So your body has 2 fuel sources. That's really important to know. So your brain and all of your bodily functions, your breathing, your sleeping, your thinking, has to get powered by the energy that we eat. And that energy gets broken down by the body 2 ways. One is glucose, which is essentially powered by sugar and carbohydrates. And the other way is ketones, and that's powered by fat. And we're going to get into why this is all so important and how it causes a lot of misconceptions that lead people down the path of less weight loss or weight gain, worse. So glucose comes from eating carbs. It can be sugar, it can be wheat, it can be anything that raises your blood sugar levels are going to be carbs, and those are glucose. So when your body is burning glucose, that's all it does. So when you use up the glucose, it makes you hungry again and you want more. Now, when you're burning ketones, it's an alternate fuel source. So think of it as burning the fat on your body. And when your body is in ketosis and it's burning fat for fuel, guess what? That's what it does. It's in fat burning mode. Okay. And we're going to talk, there's some real important things to understand about how this works. So if you're thinking glucose, you're thinking a traditional diet, a higher carb diet. That means your glucose levels rise. That's the sugar in your bloodstream. It means your pancreas then secretes insulin. There goes the insulin. That's how your blood sugars come back down. So you guys know when you eat, ice cream or sugar or some sort of treat, and you get that sugar high, and then you get that sugar crash. The sugar crash is happening because your body has released insulin. That's how people get type 2 diabetes, is their body stops releasing, or actually their body stops responding to the insulin altogether. So in a type 1 diabetic, they don't make it. In a type 2 diabetic, their body becomes essentially immune to their own insulin. Then the insulin takes that blood sugar out of the bloodstream, and guess what it turns it into? Stores it. Your body can't store sugar, and it can't store very much glucose, so it turns it into glycerin, and it hides it in your fat cells, and they're there forever. So that's when you think of a traditional diet and you think of carbohydrates and you think of that alternate, that fuel source, the one fuel source, that's what glucose does. Keto, on the other hand, your glucose levels don't rise, right? They rise very, very little. They stay very, very stable, and they stay nice and small. So you don't have all that sugar in your bloodstream. Your body then is able to release the fat that's in your fat cells, and those fatty acids get turned into ketones, and that's what your body actually burns. Again, I'm oversimplifying the process. I'll show you the chart to show you how complicated it is. This is what it looks like. So the big yellow block that you're seeing there, that's fat, okay? So how does the fat get there? Well, if you look kind of at the top, there's the food kind of coming in. So the protein's coming in, the fiber's coming in, the fat's coming in, ooh, you're just eating it all. So your body over on this side, or this side, I guess for you guys, you see over there your protein over on that side. So your body is using that for your muscles, it's using it for your immune system, for all sorts of bodily functions that you need. Then your brain needs special fuel. Your brain either needs glucose to power it or it needs ketones to power it. And what happens when you eat those carbohydrates is a whole series of cascading effects happen. And those sugars and carbohydrates get transformed or stored inside fat cells, and they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And because they form these really big triglycerides, they actually get stuck inside the fat cell. And so you can't get them out. It's really hard to get them out. So that's sort of the complex way to think about it. A little simpler way to think about it, if we kind of come back down for a minute, is your body, your bloodstream, you've got about 5 liters of blood. A big guy will have more, a small woman will have a little bit less, but on average, we have about 5 liters of blood. Now, we all think, well, my blood sugar spiked. I must have a lot of sugar in my bloodstream right now. Actually, not as much as you think. Your blood can only store about 4 grams of sugar, of glucose, in your bloodstream at any given time. If you get way more than that, that's when ketoacidosis happens. And sometimes you'll have people get concerned about, ketosis or ketones or keto diet because they get mixed up. They don't understand that it's a completely different term. It's sort of the opposite. So again, if you think of it this way, whenever you're eating, say, 1,000 calories of food and they're carbohydrates, only 4 grams of that food, of that sugar from that food, is in your blood system. Your body immediately has to release that special insulin that then brings the blood sugar back down so you don't die, and then stores it in your fat cells. So if you're looking at a big piece of bread and you're thinking in your mind, 4 grams of that bread is the fuel I can use up. Now, one caveat, just move that to the side. If you're an athlete, and I mean a real athlete, super athletic, working out all the time, that's different. You're going to burn that glucose off like crazy. But if you're not, if you're like me and you're busy and you're a mom and you're eating and you're working and you're just living a normal life, then it probably does not apply to you. You're going to have, you're not going to be burning through that much glucose. Hey, no problem. Come on, come join the fun. We're just in the nitty gritty here on what goes on with ketosis, what it is, and what happens with our body. So sugar, of course, is what fuels the glucose side, the glucose switch for our energy. And the problem with sugar is it's super yummy and it's super addictive and it spikes your blood sugar and then your blood sugar crashes. It does all of these things. And so it causes what we call the sugar addiction cycle. And we all know about this. You eat sugar, your blood sugar spike, your body's now storing it as fat. Then guess what? When your body stores all of that as fat, it's not available to burn as the energy you need. So when it's not available, it's kind of like you're starving. You're still hungry. You're not getting the nutrition you need. So your body tells you, go eat. Eat more, my friend. Eat more. So there you are. You have more hunger. You have more cravings. And then what do you eat? Well, you're getting fueled on glucose. So your body is telling you to eat, guess what? More glucose. So you crave even more carbs. And that's why we call it a sugar addiction, and it's a cycle. It's not just one thing. So every time you eat, say you dig into a bag of chips, in your mind, if you can think, I'm eating a bag of chips, but it's not just that bag of chips. I'm starting a whole cycle. It's going to be a bag of chips, and then it's going to be something else and something else, because it turns your body into a glucose burning machine instead of a fat burning machine. And that's not what you want. So sugar is in a lot of things that we don't realize it's hiding in. So if you look at the little chart here, that you guys can see just how much sugar is in stuff. So even ketchup, a tablespoon of ketchup has got a whole teaspoon of sugar in it. Stuff that we cook with, like a sugar-free applesauce, can have a ton of sugar in it. They put sugar in spaghetti sauce. There's tons of it in yogurts. There's sugar in all sorts of things that we don't even realize. And not only that, a lot of foods we don't think of as sugar or as glucose, your body recognizes it only as glucose. In fact, when you eat sweet things or really carby things, you have taste buds in your intestines, and they send out, those receptors send out all sorts of messages to the brain and to your endocrine system, and it actually changes how you metabolize your food. So that's one of the sort of aside reasons why a lot of even calorie-free sweetness is not real great. It's better to have a little bit less of that sweet flavor. So grains are metabolized in your body just like sugar. And here's something that's going to blow your mind. I probably should have made a slide about this. 2 slices of whole wheat bread that so many of us were taught were high in fiber, super low in fiber actually, and they spike your blood sugar more than Snickers, or sorry, than Skittles. Think about that. A serving of Skittles spikes your blood sugar less than 2 slices of whole wheat bread. It is crazy. So pasta, starchy vegetables. Now, when you hear people say, well, this is how much vegetables people eat in North America, that's not really true. When we look at the vegetables people eat in North America, 80% of them are potatoes, right? So we're eating vegetables, but we're eating starchy vegetables that spike our blood sugar. Same thing with fruit. We look at fruit like pineapples, pears, bananas, oranges. Here's something that's going to blow your mind. If you think about a watermelon, so bigger than my head, big old watermelon, the original watermelon was this big. They were like the size of a grape. And we've bred our fruit to have way more sugar and way less fiber over the years. So things like bananas used to be like wee little things and full of seeds. They didn't actually have that fleshy fruit all around them. So we're eating sort of frankenfruit now. I mean, there's lots of worse stuff that you can eat than fruit, but a lot of it has been bred. So some of the worst offenders for raising your blood sugar: pineapples, pears, bananas, grapes, oranges, apples. The reason why these have a detrimental effect on your blood sugar is they're full of sugar. They're bred to be that way. And what gets us in trouble is if we start adding stuff like this to smoothies. And I see this all the time. People are adding bananas, especially, to their smovieties. But remember, a banana isn't a real banana from nature. A banana they're now like 10 or 20 times bigger than they ever were without human breeding. And they've got far more sugar than they ever had. They used to actually be a very bitter, tiny fruit. So when you put that in a blender, guess what happens? You break down the fiber. So you're breaking down the one good part of the fruit that you really need outside of, the vitamin C and the other nutrients. You're getting rid of the fiber. When you do that, when you blend it, the longer you blend it, the more you break down that fiber, the higher it's going to spike your blood sugar. And I won't get too far into it because fructose, which is the type of sugar that's in fruit, is actually has a very detrimental effect on insulin. So if you struggle with your weight, it's even has more deleterious effects. So you want to make sure that the fruits that you're eating are low sugar fruits, high in fiber. And if you're mixing them in your blender, mix your blender for as short a period of time as you can. Don't let it just go on forever because you're breaking down all of that fiber. So in your monthly subscription, in your starter kit, you'll get a low sugar list. It's on the back of your Kickstart guide, and it actually has in it a list, and it shows you exactly how much sugar and fiber are in those fruits. So make sure you check that out. So I want to show you this. This is really, really important. If there's like one slide that I want you to sear into your brain and take away with you, I know it looks sort of, innocuous and weird, but this is the slide. This is the slide I want you to remember. So see that fat little mouse right there? Look at that fat little mouse up in the top corner. That is a big old mouse, right? Mice are like little skinny things running around everywhere, burning off all their glucose. So when researchers are studying things like obesity, cancer, diabetes, anything that they want to be what they call obesogenic or gain weight really fast, they feed them a special rat chow. And that rat chow has been designed by scientists and been tested over the last 50 years to make rats as fat as possible in as short a time as possible. So it's not like they were just like, oh, let's feed these rats just lots of food. They were like, no, let's figure out what we can feed these rats and what the ratio of food has to be to get them as fat as possible in as short a time as possible. And that's this specially designed obesogenic rat chow. Guess what? 40% refined carbs coming from sugar and starch, 40% vegetable oil. Right. Humans, in a standard North American diet, we are eating almost identical to obesogenic rat chow that scientists have developed to make rats as fat as possible. Guess what? We're all getting fatter, right? 60% of us now in North America are obese or overweight. It's even more in the United States the more south you get. And you can see it in the types of foods that we're eating. So the areas of the country, areas of North America, if you're in Canada and you're up in British Columbia and you look at the average population, they're slimmer than the average population. For example, in the Maritimes, where we all love our potatoes, our PEI potatoes, but that's how we're getting so big. We're actually eating scientifically designed ratio to make us as fat as possible. So fat, and I'm going to be real nuanced here because fat is still good for you, but fat with carbs is the fastest weight gain. Now I'm going to show you something. Remember we were talking about the sort of two fuel sources. You either have fat or you either have glucose going on. When you eat something with fat in it, 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. 1 gram of protein has 4 calories, and 1 gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories. Now, why is this important? Well, it's not important when you're not eating carbs, okay? Because your body can still use your fat for energy. It doesn't trap it in your fat cells. But when you remember that fat has twice as much energy in it as protein or carbohydrate, and when you eat the carbohydrate with the fat, guess what you're doing? You're locking and loading, and you're getting way more energy density, and you're cramming it all into those fat cells. So fat on its own without carbohydrates isn't going to do that because your body's not going to lock it away in the fat cells. But the second you add those carbohydrates to it, it's like fat is the bullet in the gun, and then when you pull the trigger is the carbohydrate. So not to get all like weird gunny on you, but that's, if you think of it like that, that's what carbohydrates do to fat. They turn it into a weapon, right? So fat can be good for you or it can be a weapon. The way you turn it into a weapon is to add it to carbohydrates. And I really like this graph. This is a graph showing what's called fasting oxidation. I'm going to touch a little bit on some of the benefits and some of the cons of intermittent fasting. But when you fast, you actually deplete that 4 grams of glucose that's in your bloodstream. You deplete that. You also deplete the carbohydrates, the glucose and glycogen that's in your liver. And when that happens, your body goes into ketosis. So there's 2 ways to get into ketosis. One is through fasting, and the other is just simply eating really yummy food that's really low in carbohydrate. So when you look at what happens when you have fat in your diet, you actually are not burning that fat. And that's what fat oxidation means, is burning. So you can see the difference of what happens when you have carbohydrates compared to when you don't. So I want to talk, and I know I put on, on the registration, I put the topics that we were going to cover tonight. And I get asked this a lot, and I wanted to touch base on it. I asked about taking ketones as a supplement. And I get lots of questions about it. Lots of people are spending money doing it. And there's 2 kinds. There's ketone salts and there's ketone esters. So all that research and studies and claims that you see out there with products, those are all made on studying ketone esters. Okay. Now, ketone esters are extremely expensive. They're not readily made. They're not going to be in what you're buying. I'll just tell you that right now. If you can afford it and you're buying it, you're not buying ketone esters. You're buying ketone salts. Okay. There's only been 1 study done on ketone salts. It showed no effect on physical performance, and there actually is no peer-reviewed studies. There's a big 0 over there. No peer-reviewed studies at all on any of the ketone salt products that are on the market. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand there's probably no harm in taking it, but there's probably not a lot of benefit either. So that's where the research stands on ketone salts. And why bother when you can do it through what you eat? So it really comes down to changing your core foods, right? And if you think in terms of core foods, if you're thinking in terms of what you can have, what you'd like to have, what you enjoy having, you still have to have the discipline to keep that in your kitchen. right? So I have the picture, I don't know if you can see, I kind of have it light in the background, but she's eating candy at her desk, right? Controlling her environment. Guaranteed if you're, working away or you're watching Netflix or whatever you're doing and you've got some candy nearby, you're going to be eating that candy. If you don't, you're not going to be eating it. You'll be having a shake or whatever you're doing. So when you control your environment, you control your diet. And it's really important when you're thinking about, well, I want to be healthier. Why do you want to be healthy? And praise yourself for doing what you're doing, right? Every little step is super, super important. So the next big thing with a ketogenic diet, and I want to be real clear here, I'm a super big fan of a ketogenic diet. There's kind of two important types of ketogenic diets. So that's the diet where you're trying to remain in ketosis. So the one is for medical reasons. So the ketogenic diet was actually developed for children who were not responsive to epileptic drugs. So there was lots of drugs for epilepsy. Some of them have terrible side effects, and some children just never responded to them. Of course, epilepsy can actually, very severe epilepsy can be very dangerous. And so researchers noticed, it was over 100 years ago, researchers noticed that when you took away all of the sugar and carbohydrates, these children's epileptic seizures went way down. We now know that these medical ketogenic diets are effective for things like bipolar. They can have some alleviation of moderate depression, and of course, a beneficial effect on epilepsy. So we know that it changes brain function. So when we think of a ketogenic diet, there's the medical ketogenic diet, and it's extremely strict. They have to have no carbohydrates. So they're not just trying to get into ketosis for fat burning. They're actually trying to ensure that the brain cannot function at all on glucose, and it's only functioning through ketones. And that's where the medical benefit comes from. For most of us, that's not what we're trying to do. For most of us, we're trying to eat healthier. And so when you need to get into fat burning mode, you don't have to have the same type of medical ketogenic diet to get the results that you want. And a medical ketogenic diet, not to go too far off the beaten path here, is really difficult. It's 80 to 90% of fat to eat. And it is a very difficult diet to stay on, very difficult lifestyle to live on. And it has a very low adherence rate. In other words, people kind of don't like it. So if it's for medical reasons, then you need to do that for medical reasons. But if it's like for me or the majority of us, you're doing it so that you're just healthier overall, then you don't need to be following that strict of a ketogenic diet. So the big protein myth, and the thing that people are told over and over and over again that's not true, is that protein will increase your blood sugar and stall your progress. And you see this all the time everywhere, on blogs and posts and forums, and you'll see people talking about, I'm out of ketosis, I was eating too much protein, I've got to cut down on my protein. Well, that's a myth, and I'm going to show you why that's a myth. Protein does not raise blood sugars. In fact, all of the research has shown, and including a meta-study, has shown that blood sugar levels do not increase after protein ingestion, and that's been true on healthy subjects and subjects with type 2 diabetes. So you don't have to just reduce protein and fill that space with fat. It's actually not true. You can eat a high protein diet and you can still be in ketosis and you can still be burning fat. In fact, when we look at diets, keto diets, ones that are higher in protein actually have better outcomes. So people lose more weight, they feel more full, they're able to hold on to more of their good muscle mass that they need. So it's really, really important. So eating protein will not kick you out of ketosis. There's some really great research too where they're showing day to day what happens with ketone levels and protein levels. And there's just absolutely no correlation between high protein and ketosis. The thing that will kick you out of ketosis, those slippery, slidey little carbs that you don't realize are there. So carbs are what kicks you out of ketosis. So protein is really important because protein is the most filling macronutrient we have. In other words, protein makes you feel full. Fat does not actually make you feel full. Fiber does make you feel full. So you want more protein so that it helps you control your appetite. And that means you're controlling it naturally. You're not trying to reduce your portion size. You're not trying to starve yourself. You're just naturally doing it. It also increases your metabolism. That's really cool. We know that you can actually burn calories just processing protein. So it's kind of like getting it on a discount. But on top of that, your body actually burns off more calories. It also has been proven in multiple studies. When I say multiple studies, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of studies on protein and on whey protein. It is the most studied macronutrient there is. So when we talk about, taking ketone supplements, those are not studied. Protein is well documented. We know what it does. So it reduces those food cravings and improves your body composition. What does that mean? Well, you notice, and you'll see this with people that lose a lot of weight. When they're losing a lot of fat, a lot of times they're losing muscle. You don't want that, right? You need to hold on to your muscle underneath so that that keeps your metabolism higher, but it also is what helps with your overall body shape and your strength. When you're eating high protein during fat loss, so when you're burning that fat, the protein acts as a protector and it protects that muscle that we need. It's super important, both for men and women. And then last but not least, it reduces energy intake. So that's really important. We naturally eat less when we have more protein. So the most important thing to remember to remain in ketosis, so when you cut out those carbohydrates, is to limit your carbohydrates, your net carbohydrates, to 20 a day. And that's going to keep you in ketosis. And you really don't want to go above 50 when you're maintaining. There's some people who are a lot more active that can be around 100. But if you're following, if you're kind of paying attention to what you're doing, you should have an idea of when you're losing weight and then when that plateaus and if you start gaining weight. And that'll give you your set point. But for most of us, especially for me, 20 grams a day is my max. 50 is a pretty bad day. And at 100, I'll start gaining weight. So just to give you an idea of at least my breakdown. The most common low-carb foods that will kick you right out of ketosis and stop your fat burning are hidden carbs. It's not like we're all out there eating chips. So a lot of dressings that we don't realize, maybe you order it at the restaurant, they sneak that stuff in there. So, be really careful about what you're putting on it. Processed cheese, different toppings, lots of dips that you think are safe that you're having, they're in there. Same thing with reduced fat products. So reduced fat, we don't have peanut butter in our house, but basically reduced fat anything is going to have extra carbs in it. And healthy products, we see this over and over again. These smart cookie dough protein bar things, those guys have 4 grams of sugar and they've got like 12 or 13 grams of carbohydrates. Those, reading the backs of protein bars and healthy yogurts and all those sorts of things, you'll see Greek yogurt high in protein and you'll flip it over to the back and it'll have 12 grams of sugar in it. You've got to be making sure that you're not accidentally eating this stuff, because it's going to, once again, not just kick you out of ketosis, but it's going to flip that switch. Your body's going to be fueled on glucose, which means you're storing that fat from the calories you're eating and you're wanting more. And then, of course, drinks and coffee. Whenever you're eating anything from Starbucks or Tim Hortons and you think, well, I'm just having like milk in my coffee, right? What could that hurt? There's 12 grams of sugar in a cup of skim milk, you guys. So there's way more sugar and stuff than you realize. The next really important thing to remember when you're walking down the grocery aisle and you're like, anything that's in a package, anything that's made, anything that has a label on it, 82% of them have added sugar. Think about that for a minute. You stand in the grocery aisle and just like do a 360, just look around. 82% of everything except for like the meat and veggies, 82% added sugar. Why do they do that? Remember back in the first couple slides when I showed you guys the sugar cycle where you're addicted and then you're craving it and then you eat more and you crave it and you eat more. That's why they're doing it. They're doing it because you're going to buy more and they're going to make more money. So the next most common thing that can slow down your weight loss, especially when you're working on and you're trying to stay in ketosis, is getting deficient in certain common nutrients. Now, the irony is when you're eating a standard North American diet, you probably are deficient. 42% of women are deficient in vitamin D. Guess what? Lots of studies showed strong correlation between not enough vitamin D and weight gain. So not just weight gain, gaining weight afterwards, but also being heavier. So vitamin D. The other one, 92% of us are deficient in magnesium. It's in our multivitamins. Magnesium is super important. I'm a huge proponent of it. Did you guys know, this is kind of a fun fact, Epsom salts that you put in your bath are magnesium. That's what it is, magnesium citrate. So I have my bath with Epsom salts. After about 20 minutes, it actually gets absorbed through the skin. So you can absorb magnesium. You don't have to just eat it as a supplement. You can actually absorb it in your bath. So there you go. That's a little tip. And then serotonin. There isn't a supplement that you can take for that other than drugs for depression. But When you sleep better, when you eat better, when you're getting exercise, when you're thinking positively, you will naturally produce more serotonin. Low serotonin levels are associated strongly with weight gain. So this gets to why I don't recommend putting a lot of extra fats in your drink. I did it for a while and I tracked how it went. I don't do it at all anymore. The reason why is, remember back when we were talking about how dense the calories are with fat? Good fat is good for you. But like anything else, when you're just adding it because someone's told you it's going to help you get into ketosis faster, it's not. And the problem with those drinks is you lose track of how much energy you're still bringing in. You lose track of how many calories you're still bringing in. And calories aren't the whole picture, right? It's not calories in, calories out, but they still matter. How much you eat still matters. So when it's easy to drink and you're getting, 300-400 calories in one little drink, and then you have another, and then you have another, it's really easy to get off track. So that's why I don't recommend it. You can get healthy fats in the good food that you're eating and making. Go make a mug cake that has lots of healthy fat, has lots of coconut fat in it. 60 seconds later, you're sitting there with your Nutrilean and your coconut fat, and you're having a yummy, chocolatey, good brownie dish. It's full of fiber. Full of protein. You're going to feel super full and you're going to go to bed. You're not going to get those fullness benefits from a bulletproof coffee. And that's why I'm not a big fan of it for most people. So the next thing is sleep. And this is probably one of the most important things. It's even more important than exercise. And we need sleep, and it has a way bigger effect on our weight than we think. Poor sleep is one of the major risk factors for weight gain and for obesity. They did a meta review of all of the studies that were published, and they found that a lack of sleep increased obesity in children by 89% and 55% in adults. So when you're thinking about that, and we look at, we have a huge problem with childhood obesity. A lot of our schools start too early in the morning. So these poor kids are getting up at like 6:30, 7 in the morning to get to school. And it's disrupting their sleep, their circadian rhythms. It's disrupting their sleep. Kids need sleep. Adults need sleep. We all need to go to bed early. The blue light from our phones is making it so we can't sleep. It's part of what's contributing to the obesity epidemic. Studies show also that a lack of sleep increases hunger. So it makes you so hungry. Why does it make you hungry? It increases ghrelin and it decreases leptin. Leptin is the hormone that makes you feel full. Ghrelin is a hormone that makes you feel hungry and store fat. So you're producing more of the bad stuff, less of the good stuff, and you're just hungry. You're like, nah. And you're chewing on everything. So poor sleep, super, super important. And it also affects our brain. So a lack of sleep actually alters the synapses in our brain. It alters the pathways in our brain. And it makes us less resistant to junk food, literally. So a lack of sleep, even one night, the next day, you have way less willpower and you have way less resistance to all sorts of things. Yes, we can do a whole nother webinar just on metabolic changes that happen with menopause. So if you guys want, I will totally do that. And we can pull one out in the next month or so, because there's lots of tips that are very specific for women that are menopausal. And how do you manage that? Because you're absolutely right. When you don't have the same estrogen and testosterone working together, it affects your metabolism. Absolutely, we can do that. So that'll be my next one that I will get put together, and we will start going through it. So the other thing is, not only are you craving more when you have a lack of sleep, but guess what else? You're consuming more when you do eat it. So you're craving it more, which means you're doing it more. But when you do it, you're doing more of it. So it's like a horrible, horrible feedback cycle. So now we need to ask, do calories still matter, right? Because we were always told calories in, calories out, just eat less, just walk more. We know that doesn't work. We know it's way more complex than that. But I think the pendulum has swung too far the other way, where we're being told calories don't matter at all. Just eat all the food you want. And that's also not true. We're still in a human form here. So stuff comes in, stuff still has to go out. And so if someone tells you that calories don't matter, they don't have any credibility. If somebody tells you that calories are all that matters, you should ignore those people too, because they're also wrong. So calories are not the main villain in the story, but they're definitely an accessory in the story. So calories are important. And we know they're important because we know that even when you're eating lots of just healthy foods, if you're eating way more of that, you are not going to burn as much fat as when you're eating less, right? So protein and fiber are the most filling. Fat and carbs together cause weight gain. Fat without carbs doesn't cause weight gain. So highly processed junk food, simple carbs, makes it easy to eat more and more often. And we know calories also count. Individuals that track just calories still lost 4 times more weight, 400% more weight than those that didn't track. So I want to make sure, I have a slide here at the end, but I want to make sure that you guys know that we have a really great tracking app that you guys can use to help you with this. So calories are part of the equation. They're just not the whole story. Same fat, different outcome. So when you have 10% of your calories coming from fat, 40% coming from, 10% coming from protein, 40% coming from fat, and half coming from carbohydrates, and you compare that to 50% coming from protein, about 40% coming from your fat, and 10% from your carbohydrate, that is when your body brings in the least amount of energy. In other words, that's the optimum for naturally eating the least and naturally burning off the most fat reserves. So the exact opposite, right? So the fat level stays the same. You're just switching the protein and the carbohydrates. So if you think of it that way, it can be really helpful. Another way to think of it is max nutrients. You want to eat the food that is most nutrient dense. So the food that's most nutrient dense also is the food that has the least amount of glucose in it. So food products that have lots of protein and lots of fiber, those are the foods that you want. They also happen to be the ones that always have the most nutrients. The most nutrient poor are your breads and your starchy carbs, and all of those have fewer nutrients. So I know I promised you, because we get asked lots about intermittent fasting. So this is my bonus topic for tonight, intermittent fasting, pros and cons. One of the great things about intermittent fasting is it helps put your body, kickstart your body back into ketosis. So if you're not in ketosis right now and you want to kickstart it, a fast is a very effective way to do that. Why? Because remember those 4 little grams that we showed you in your blood system, it's going to burn those off. You're going to use those for fuel right away. And then you're also going to burn off all that glycogen that's in your liver, and your body is going to start burning ketones. It's going to unlock that key, and you're going to start burning fat. So it is helpful, especially to kickstart getting into ketosis or to kickstart eating more low carb and high protein. It's been shown to suppress inflammation. It's been shown to help manage hunger. So you'll be hungry for the first little bit, but then your hunger actually decreases. Cons, it's not actually beneficial over the long run. So if you're just relying on intermittent fasting and you're kind of eating like garbage, and then, intermittent fasting and then eating like garbage, or, you're over the long run, no benefit whatsoever. So we know that a low carbohydrate and ketogenic diets outperform a calorie restricted diet by almost double. That's not the case longer term with intermittent fasting. So, and it can lead to binge eating in some people. So emotionally, if that's an issue for you, it might not be a great solution, but for some people, it's a great way to do it. If you're going to do it, the research, we do some good studies now. The research actually shows that the maximum fat burning starts to take place between after about 12 hours of fasting. So, let's say you start at night, so you go to bed at say 10 o'clock. Then by 10 o'clock the next morning, that's 12 hours. That's when you're really going to start that fat burning, and you can see on the little red section that's coming down after 12 hours. And then you see really a nice drop between that 18 and 24 hour mark. So if you can go without, with basically just eating I think you can have about 300 calories or so, still considered, still will have the same benefit. So you could have like a shake or something to make yourself feel full. But that 18 to 24 hours is sort of the sweet spot if you're going to do intermittent fasting. So the important points that we covered tonight are carbs turn off fat burning. So they turn off fat burning and they load the fat you eat. They load it and they shoot it right into those fat cells where they're trapped and they're in there forever and you're hungry again. So carbs turn off fat burning. Protein and fiber, turn them back on, and they make you naturally feel full. So when you want to eat really yummy food, what makes food taste yummy is the fat in it. So when you're able to replace carbohydrates with protein and fiber, like cooking with Nutri-Cell, you get to have the fats in there that make it taste really, really good. So you can make everything. You can make bread, you can make soups, you can make pizza, you can make almost anything with it. And what's so great is you're able to enjoy all of those foods and keep the fat burning going. You're absolutely burning off all that fat and feeling super, super full. And we've got some really great tools to help you stay on track and to help you burn that fat. So we've got an awesome cookbook. It's got 300 pages, all full color. All of them are super yummy, delicious recipes. So make sure you get the cookbook. It's got 142 recipes in it. And there's nothing better than just having it on the counter so you can use it while you're doing it. And then we also have our Nudge app. So the Nudge app, and you can find it when you go on the website. I should have given the link, but it's on the website. On the Nudge app, it's totally free. When you download it, make sure you enter Nutricell, all one word, all lowercase, and then it will load for you and you'll be able to track all sorts of things. You can track your weight. It's super easy. There's nothing worse in the world than having to enter a whole bunch of stuff. You just tell it, I had some protein, I had a cheat, swipe, 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 done. Super easy. So make sure you get that. Then we also have tons of recipes on our website right now. So you can go get all the recipes for free, all on the website. And in the next week, we're going to be introducing a whole new recipe platform for you guys. All of our recipes are in there. It has shopping lists, has meal plans. It automatically calculates every recipe to what you want. You can search by allergen. If you're a nut-free family like mine, you can search, you'll be able to search if you're a bariatric patient. You'll be able to search whether you're on clears, whether you're on soft foods, whether you're on purees, and you can search by low carbohydrate, you can search by keto, you can all of that stuff by ingredients, and you can load your own recipes. You can create your own cookbooks, you can share them, and create your own meal plans, and you can scale them and create a shopping list that you can text or email. So you can text your husband and be like, here's my shopping list, honey, get to work. So we're going to be launching that soon. We're just testing it. If you would like to be invited, I know a few of you, I know Callie, you've been in there working on it, and I know a few of you have. If you would like to do that, email us at info@Nutricell.com, and we will send you a private link to the beta version. So the whole thing will be live, we hope, in the next week, but all the recipes are still on the recipe section in the website. So make sure that you check that out. So there you go. I love talking about this stuff. I hope I didn't get too deep into the woods with everybody. And I know there were a few questions. Tracy just said she messaged them to me. So let's see. I got my old lady eyes in. Let's see if I can read my own. Yes, a lot of recipes require coconut flour. Can you have that with a peanut allergy? Yes, in Canada, coconut is not considered a nut. And it's not considered a tree nut. And lots of folks that have tree nut allergies. So we have both in our household. So my daughter has tree nut allergies and my son has tree nut and peanut allergies. But people can also be allergic to coconut. Even though the word nut is in it, it's not actually a nut. It's a fruit from a tree. So coconut is typically okay. But you can always, I say to check always with your allergist. And if you can't have coconut, now this is why I'm so excited about the meal recipe plans, because I want your recipes. So many of you guys have amazing recipes using all sorts of stuff we can't have in our house. So there's folks that can cook with lupin flour. We can't have it in our house. We have folks that cook with almond flour, with soy flour, all sorts of things that people can cook and use and make with their Nutricell that I can't have in my house because our two kids have life-threatening allergies. So I really am excited for you guys to be able to share all your variations that work for you in your household that aren't necessarily what I create and come up with my own. So yeah. Did I miss any other question? Yeast. My take on yeast in a low-carb diet. Oh my. Well, I don't use, so there's been some demonstrated benefits to yeast. I haven't looked a whole lot in it, mostly because I'm a little bit lazy and it's a lot of work to cook anything with yeast. And I find everything I do, I don't need to, plus yeast needs sugar. Now I know there's like benefits to just eating yeast, but I really haven't researched it very much, but I will just because you asked, so I can start going through all the research journals and see what I find on yeast, and I can definitely get back to you on that one. That's one I have not dug into. So there you go. Not a very good answer, I'm afraid. All right. Did I miss? Oh, magnesium. How much magnesium should you be taking? That is a very good question. It depends on how deficient you are in magnesium. You should definitely be taking a multivitamin that has added magnesium. And you can tell by how you start to feel. And we didn't get too far into the different nutrients, but a lot of women are deficient in a lot of the minerals. So iron, zinc, magnesium, but magnesium is the main one. And it's really important. One of the ways you can tell if you're deficient in magnesium, especially, is if you notice that you're getting edema or swelling, especially in the ankles. That's often a sign that you have a deficiency in magnesium. And that's because the cell wall linings actually need magnesium and they become porous when you're deficient in magnesium. And so the fluid literally seeps out into the interstitial tissue, and then you get edema, you get swelling, swollen ankles, big puffy ankles. So that's a good sign that you're deficient in magnesium. So there you go, you guys. I love this. I hope I didn't bore you with all of the goodies on making sure you stay on track with your keto and ways that we can easily get tripped up. I am going to do one on just for menopausal women or women who are about to go into menopause or who are dealing with weight gain around menopause. So I'm definitely doing that one. And I'll put a poll up on NutriTalk. If you aren't familiar with NutriTalk, come join us on there. I'll put a poll up for what our next topic will be. So if you have an idea for a topic, please go ahead and post or send an email and let me know, because I would love to do one on what you guys want to hear. All right, you guys, have an awesome, awesome night. Stay in ketosis, stay away from that sugar, and have a shake instead. Have a good night, you guys.